Vince McMahon was not backstage in Portland tonight for SmackDown like he was for Raw on Monday night in LA. There was no presence backstage. The rumor going around is that Vince McMahon supposedly was at an Eagles concert tonight. They were playing the Prudential Center in New Jersey, and supposedly that is where Vince McMahon was. I am sure, no doubt, rewriting the song lineup before the band went out on stage. I don't care where he is, honestly, so long as he is away from these shows and he is not in the chair. That's all I care about. For all I care, Joe Walsh can take him on tour with him. They can travel the country. They can have Vince go out there and perform Stand Back to warm up the crowds. You know, the funny thing is, there's been a story over these many years that Joe Walsh was supposed to actually perform at a WWE pay-per-view back in, I believe it was 1995. And in fact, there was an item in one of the WWF magazines. So apparently it was scheduled at some point. But the reason it didn't happen is because Vince McMahon apparently didn't know who Joe Walsh was. So it didn't happen. And here we are now. Supposedly he is at an Eagles concert. Let him stay there. He did review plans, though. The reports are for the show tonight, he made some minor changes, whatever those changes may have been. But this show tonight was nothing like the one that we got on Monday night, where segments were literally being cut and changed while the show was on the air. We didn't have any of that tonight. Tonight, we had another Triple H address to the WWE Universe. He came out at the beginning of Raw on Monday night to give themselves a nice big pat on the back for all of their WrestleMania accomplishments. He was touting all of the 161,000 people over those two nights in attendance at SoFi Stadium. Much of his promo, much of his speech tonight was a carbon copy of what he talked about on Monday night, except for one very important difference. There was one very important distinction between Monday and Friday, and that was the announcement that there will be in these next few weeks, he didn't say exactly when, but at some point over these next several weeks, there will be a WWE draft. The draft is back. There have been rumors about the draft for a while that maybe it was going to happen in the fall of last year. I always thought the fall was a terrible time to do the draft because you were heading into Survivor Series, which traditionally has been Raw versus SmackDown. Well, Triple H did away with that. No more Raw versus SmackDown at Survivor Series. Now it is War Games, or at least last year it was. Let's assume he'll be doing War Games again this year. But I always thought the more appropriate time to do the draft is coming out of WrestleMania. WrestleMania, as they said last week, they look at it internally. Corey Graves said it's our opening day, right? The night after WrestleMania is our opening day because WrestleMania is the big season finale. Well, wouldn't it make more sense to do a draft if you're going to shake up the rosters after your year has ended, before you go into your new season? That would seem to make more sense to me. Traditionally, in the past, in the early days, that is when the draft was done. So it is a return to the old days in that respect. Now, again, Triple H did not give a date. It could be the end of this month. It could be the beginning of next month. We'll find out the details in the days ahead. But the draft is coming, and we will talk more about the draft here in just a little bit. The Bloodline tonight tried to get rid of the Sami Zayn problem. It was Sami Zayn against main event Jey Uso to close out tonight's show. Jimmy Uso was not there. He was left at home by Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman said, "We believe in you to go out there and take care of our Sami Zayn problem." And in the end, it was Solo Sikoa doing what he does best and standing up for the Bloodline and helping the Bloodline to victory, just as he did with Roman at WrestleMania. And when everything looked bleak, Kevin Owens had already been taken out in a backstage segment earlier in the night. Matt Riddle came out. The same Matt Riddle who, the last time we saw him before Monday, and boy, is this what they did tonight, boy, does that make the segment on Monday seem like a complete waste of time. But prior to that, the last time we saw Matt Riddle on television, I think he had a chair wrapped around his head, and he was put on the shelf by Solo Sikoa. So that actually made sense. And now one of the key matches for the Backlash pay-per-view in Puerto Rico next month comes into greater focus. I got to give a shout out here, though, before we go on, to Paul Hamilton. You've heard the name Paul Hamilton mentioned on this stream many times, the Portland pop star himself. Well, SmackDown was in Portland tonight, and Paul was parked right there in the front row. I don't have any screenshots to throw up for you, but I know some of you tweeted images to me. He was in the front row. He had his Sound Off shirt on. He had a Sound Off sign he smuggled into the building. He got it on TV a few times. So, Paul, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for representing the podcast. I got a number of messages from people who saw that. So that was very cool. Thank you very much. This is the post-WrestleMania episode of SmackDown for Friday, April 7th, 2023. And this is your SmackDown review. I am the Solomonster. Subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. The goal tonight, the likes goal here on this video is 500. So if we can get 500 likes or more, we will do our Be the Booker segment later on. Super chats are open. You'll see them popping up on your screen. If you want to support the channel, if you want to support the podcast, you may do so. And I'll be reading your messages a little bit later on. Channel memberships are open and SmackDown open, with an in memoriam graphic for Bushwhacker Butch, Bob Miller, who passed away this past week. He actually had flown in from New Zealand. He was going to be part of WrestleCon with his tag team partner, Bushwhacker Luke. And Mick Foley, actually, on his podcast, told a very sad story. There were a few sad things that happened at WrestleCon this year, and very embarrassing things. But one of the sadder things, Mick Foley had a table right next to where the Bushwhackers were supposed to be. And Mick was talking about how every time he would turn, he would see Bushwhacker Luke sitting there all by himself. Because as soon as Butch landed, I think he came in with his wife, he took ill. We still don't know exactly what happened, but he got sick. They rushed him to the hospital. He ended up passing away. And Mick said every time he would look over, knowing that situation, he would see Luke sitting there all by himself. And he said it was very sad. So I was happy to see them throw up a graphic, as we've been doing here all week on the channel. So rest in peace to Bushwhacker Butch. But the show also opened with a 6-man tag. It was the Brawling Brutes taking on Imperium. Not a match that is a fresh match that we haven't seen before, but you get no complaints out of me when you put these 6 men in the ring together, because I think they are incapable of having a bad match. Tonight was no different. Sheamus was not successful at WrestleMania in becoming Intercontinental Champion for the very first time. Well, there's always, as many of you pointed out as well, there is always money in the bank, which is at the O2 in London. You got SummerSlam also at Ford Field. You'll probably have a good 40 or 50,000 people there, but it's hard to match that London crowd. That's why Wembley Stadium is going to be so much fun for AEW. We'll talk about Wembley on the podcast on Sunday. By the way, Drew McIntyre, I should mention, he was not on the show tonight. He was in that triple threat match, though, on Sunday at WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre was pulled from a signing earlier today and the show tonight. I don't know if he would have been on the show, but whatever they may have had planned for him, he wasn't there. Apparently some sort of health issue, an illness. So that is why he was not on the show tonight. It's unknown what the health issue at this time
Jerry
was.
Lawler loves Gunther, the Magnificent. All hail
Bobbert
Gunther.
Reviews with the $50 Gunther super chat here during Gunther's match. It's funny how it always seems to match up that way. We're talking Gunther, and there's Gunther on my screen. Hey, Bobbert, thank you very much for the $50 super chat drop. Love you, brother. So, Ridge Holland, at one point, he escaped the Boston Crab that he was locked in by Gunther. He made the hot tag to Sheamus, and I do mean hot tag because the crowd, look, when these two guys are in the ring together, they know they're going to get a fight. So the crowd was excited to see Sheamus get in there with Gunther, and they went at it for a bit. Sheamus rocked him with the 10 beats of the Bowdring, and then went for the brogue, but Gunther countered with a German suplex. Giovanni Vinci tagged in. Everybody at that point here started hitting big moves. Butch wiped out Kaiser at ringside with a moonsault. For the finish, Sheamus caught Vinci with a knee strike to the face as Vinci was springboarding off the ropes, and then won it for the Brutes with a brogue kick. As I said, we have seen this match on multiple occasions before, but I have yet to see them have a bad match together. These 15 minutes here in this match to open the show was better than any 15-minute stretch I saw on the television program on Monday night, in that entire 3-hour stretch. Now, when they came back, they recapped the angle from the end of Raw. That at least made the show newsworthy. There was a newsworthy angle at the end of Raw Monday night where Brock Lesnar was supposed to team up with Cody Rhodes to take on Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. And before the match could even begin, Brock Lesnar attacked Cody Rhodes because Brock Lesnar hates people. He hates all people, all walks of life. He does not play well with others. Cody Rhodes should have known that. He paid the price for it. So we got a replay here of Brock demolishing Cody Rhodes and leaving him for dead. Now, a lot of people were wondering on Monday, well, what is the rationale for this? We will have to wait a week and find out. But why would Brock Lesnar attack Cody Rhodes? What would be the impetus for him to attack Cody the way that he did, and when he did, before the match even began? Well, we come back live, and they get a shot of the announcers. And Wade Barrett says that he heard that Brock Lesnar told WWE officials that he was livid that they put his match on first at WrestleMania on Sunday, because they opened the show with the match with Brock and Omos. And so evidently he was furious that they had him open the show on Sunday. And that is why he destroyed Cody Rhodes. All I can say is I certainly hope that is not the explanation that they are going to settle on. I hope that is not the explanation that they end up going with. We all know, it's a running joke at this point, that Brock Lesnar's favorite segment on the show is the opening segment. It is the opening segment because that means he can leave the building and be on a plane back home and possibly be back home before the show is even over, because Raw, of course, is 7.5 hours every single week. All right, we joke about it all the time. Not only that, Brock Lesnar, now that wasn't the case this week because Brock had to stick around in LA to do the angle on Monday. But traditionally, when we see Brock, he's in and out. And usually it's at the beginning of the show. Sometimes maybe it's at the top of the hour. But the quicker he can get out of there, the better. But like Brock Lesnar, this is the same man who opened WrestleMania 35 in a championship match. All of a sudden, we're supposed to believe that this is some kind of, it's like a line that should never be crossed. And therefore, he had to murder Cody Rhodes on television because of it, as if it was Cody's fault. Brock is the one who lost to Roman Reigns at SummerSlam last year. It's his own fault. He can't get another title match until Roman loses. Honestly, it would have been a better explanation if they would have just said that he was pissed that Cody lost. Had Cody won at WrestleMania, Brock would have been able to challenge for the championship. You could have done the exact same angle. That at least would have made sense. Right? He's been waiting. He's been wrestling other people. He wrestled Omos. He's been biding his time until somebody can come along and beat the tribal chief. And now that Cody beat the tribal chief, he's coming after Cody and the championship. That at least would have made more sense. But they still have a few days to come up with something better than what they spoon-fed us here tonight, because that is just ridiculous. It sounded to me like maybe that was one of those minor changes that Vince McMahon supposedly made to the show tonight, because what a stupid explanation. See, I just made more sense out of this than WWE did, but don't get me started on WrestleMania again. Kayla Braxton was in the back with Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa. And Heyman was able to get a little Passover joke in there. Of course, it was Passover this week. He asked Kayla why this night was different than all the other nights. He said, because Paul Heyman, well, he said Paul Heyman shall pass over your intrusive interrogatory and discuss something far more relevant, like the fact that the Bloodline headlined not one, but two nights of WrestleMania this year, which is true. We had the Usos on night one, Roman Reigns on night two. And I was thinking, the Bloodline story is not over yet. The Bloodline could be around for years longer, for all we know. Even though it seems like they're barreling towards the inevitable destruction of this group when Jey Uso finally comes to his senses and puts his foot down, and we get the Jey Uso-Roman Reigns match, whether it's for the championship or not. But when you think about factions in WWE history, right? When you think about WCW, right? What's the most dominant faction in WCW history? It's the NWO, right? Nothing comes close. You could say, well, the Four Horsemen were better. This group was better. I'm not talking about better. I'm talking about dominant. The most dominant faction in a company's history. The NWO dominated that company for 3 years. They had offshoots of the NWO. We had the Wolfpack. We had NWO 2000. We had the LWO, which is back now, right? In WWE, what would you consider to be the most dominant faction in company history? There have been a lot of great groups. You could say the Hart Foundation. You could go back even further, the Heenan family. Some people might say DX. I was always a big fan of The Shield, right? They were main eventers right out of the gate on day one. You've had the Nation, you had the Ministry, you had the Corporation, you had the McMahon-Helmsley regime, you had Evolution, right? The Authority, on and on and on. Here's a faction that has been completely dominant now for a period of nearly 3 full years, right? It was more towards the end of 2020 that it began to form. And they just headlined 2 nights of WrestleMania. What other group, what other faction in company history can you look at this and say, well, they've been even more dominant than the Bloodline? I think the Bloodline would have to be number 1, right? Doesn't mean that they may not be your favorite faction, but it's not really a stretch to say that they are the most dominant group this company has ever produced. So he said, this is all thanks to Roman Reigns. That is why we were able to headline 2 nights of WrestleMania. Jey Uso walked in. He asked Paul, hey, you know where my brother is? I guess, has he not spoken to him all day? Are we supposed to believe that he hasn't tried to communicate with his brother or text him or call him all day long? So he wants to know where Jimmy is. And Heyman told him, well, your brother isn't here tonight because Roman Reigns wanted him to stay home and watch main event Jey Uso take out the Sami Zayn problem once and for all by himself. And as he was explaining this, Jey he looked unconvinced. He looked very skeptical, but, he said eat. Is it eat or yeet? I don't know. These Samoans are very hungry. Maybe he wanted to go eat, but then he walked off screen. Paul Heyman then looked at Solo Sikoa, and he told Solo that Jey solves the Sami Zayn problem tonight, or you solve our problems tonight. Very interesting choice of words there by Paul Heyman. It did not seem like good news for Jey Uso. So up next, we had Ricochet going one-on-one with Ivar of the Viking Raiders. One-on-one, they were told that Braun Strowman and Eric were banned from ringside here for this match. Ivar avoided a springboard elbow, hit a spinning heel kick for a near fall. Ricochet cut off Ivar as he climbed up to the top rope. Ricochet hit a Hurricane Rana that took Ivar down to the mat, and then a shooting star press to finish him off. They did what they could in the span of 4 minutes. I mean, there wasn't really much to this, but it was okay. To the back, Kevin Owens was sitting and he was just marveling at the tag team titles that were hanging there in his dressing room. With a tear in Hashway's eye, he just dropped the 1992 Ric Flair Super Chat. Woo. Thank you, Hashway. So Kevin Owens staring at the tag team titles. Sami Zayn walks up. Owens tells Zayn, your match with Jey tonight, it's a chance for us to finally close the book once and for all on the Usos and on the Bloodline. All you have to do is go out there and beat Jey. Sami said that I just can't shake the feeling that I need to go speak to Jey. And Owens just had this look on his face like after all of the shit that we have been through and the weeks and weeks and weeks of you trying to convince me that you needed my help to take down the Bloodline, and now you're conflicted and you feel like you have to go talk to this man. He didn't say that, but that's what he was thinking, right? He had that look in his face like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Zayn said, he felt like he had some sense of obligation. Owens said beating the Usos for the tag team titles makes Jey more dangerous. Not the opposite. Makes him even more dangerous than he's ever been. Owens said, look, I know that look in your eye. I know I'm not going to be able to change your mind. I just want you to know I think this is a bad idea. And Sami assured KO that everything would be okay. Spoiler, everything was not okay. So we had Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez taking on Shotzi and Natalya. Now, for those of you who missed Raw on Monday night, congratulations. But for those of you who missed Raw Monday night, Liv and Raquel won a shot at the women's tag team titles coming up on Raw this upcoming Monday against Becky Lynch and Lita. They had gotten a win on Monday over Dakota Kai and Io Sky, who really came across as just almost like enhancement talent, frankly, in that match. And there's a lot of rumors going around about the future of Damage Control. There may not be a future for Damage Control. That's not confirmed, but that is the rumor going around that Damage Control may be on its last legs. So Liv and Raquel, they won that match. They're now the number one contenders, even though they lost in the Women's Showcase of WrestleMania. That was Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler that won that match. Now, that match was never talked about as being a number one contenders match, but it was weird. Speaking of which, the man himself, the man of the hour, Paul Hamilton. It's a party in here. Look at this. On Passover week, no less. We're having a party here on the street. We're Barry Horowitz. Where's Barry Horowitz at? Holy shit. Paul Hamilton with the $150 super chat. Straight from the arena in Portland, from the front row of SmackDown to the live stream here on YouTube. This man does it all. What does this man not do? He gets the shirt on TV, he gets the sign on TV, and he drops a bomb on me on top of everything else. Says, thank you, Solomonster, for all you do, and to the GWO for letting me know that we got our sign on the show. As soon as I saw Paul, I saw him. He was right there in the front row. And they have a very strict policy, apparently, in that building. Like, you can't even get into the building. They'll take your sign and rip it up and, like, throw it on the side. But Paul found a way. Paul is persistent, and I love you for it. Thank you very much. Wow, $150 here on a Friday night. That is awesome. Paul, thank you. So as I said, Liv and Raquel, they did not win the Women's Showcase, but they're getting a tag team title match because Ronda is still hurt. Shayna may have been hurt. We've heard nothing on her as far as like any sort of injury update, but if you watch the end of that match back on WrestleMania Sunday, Shayna had one boot on and one boot off, and there was a spot in that match where it looked like she may have been hurt. So I don't know what their status is, but apparently we're not going to see them for a little while, so I guess they had to crown new number one contenders for the tag team titles. Now, I talked about Vince McMahon and all the changes on Raw, Monday night. One of the things that he apparently blew up on the show on Monday, there was almost like a little mini tournament. There were 2 triple threat women's matches scheduled. And I don't know if there would have been a final match that night or the following week, but those matches were put on the show by Triple H to help crown a number one contender for Bianca Belair and the Raw Women's Championship. Those matches were axed by the Irish Madman, who instead replaced it with the match that we got, which was Liv and Raquel challenging for the women's tag team title shot against Becky and Lita next week. So if it didn't make much sense, that would explain why. So anyway, here they were against Shotzi and Natty. This was like a tune-up match for them for this Monday. Raquel and Liv got a quick win here to build them up for that match. Natty and Shotzi set up for the heart attack. Rodriguez cut off Natty. Morgan used a DDT and hit the Oblivion for the win. And that's it. That's all there was to it. And now they get their tag team championship match on Monday. I am not expecting... Well, you know what? I am not expecting a title change, but, again, there's been a lot of chatter about a Trish Stratus heel turn, and she was there on Raw Monday night. Trish is still with them. It's not like she was only in for WrestleMania and now Trish is done. She was an attraction for the pay-per-view. She's still with them. Something's going on here. If Trish were to turn, it all depends on how they do the turn. Is there something that happens that pisses her off and leads to her turning and then feuding with Becky? Or is it just a completely random turn out of nowhere that cost them the tag team titles? I still think Ronda and Shayna are getting those belts. So I think this match on Monday coming up is just a match for them to do, to kill time until Ronda is cleared and ready to come back. I think they're ultimately going to end up with the titles, and that could be when there's a Trish turn, if in fact there ends up being a Trish turn. So I'm not expecting a title change on Monday night. We went backstage, and we see Xavier Woods and Madcap Moss playing video games because it's their only way to get on the show. What else are they going to do? They're playing WWE 2K23. Emma is sitting there behind Matt because she and Madcap are together, so she's sitting there watching Madcap. As I'm sure there are many girlfriends across this great land of ours who can relate to having to sit there and watch their boyfriends or their husbands or whatever sit there and play video games all day. So LA Knight walked into the room, and he complained about not being on the WrestleMania card. He's not the only one. Woods said that Knight probably would have been on the WrestleMania card if he had worked as much as or as hard as he talks. So Woods offered to beat him in another match, since if you remember, Woods already beat him several weeks ago on TV. Knight picked up a PS5 controller, and he smashed it on the ground. And Moss had to hold back Woods from going after LA Knight for doing that. I will tell you that many times, sitting here and playing Sound Off Gamer, I have wanted to do that exact same thing to my PS5 controller. And it has taken every fiber of my being, when I get screwed over in that stupid game, to not take my controller and smash it against the wall. So it was kind of cathartic, to be honest with you, to watch LA Knight, to make the noises and break the controller and throw it on the ground. So, look, I'm just glad he was on television tonight as himself. I was half legitimately expecting him to show up tonight as a male modeling agent, begging for his job back from Maxine and Massey and Mansois and Otis and whoever else is part of that faction. So the fact that he was on the show tonight as LA Knight is a win. I'll take it. So then it was time for for the second time this week. Hey, Andy in the chat. I see you, Andy Blake. It was time for the second Triple H address of the week to the WWE Universe. He welcomed us to SmackDown, even though we were an hour into the show. I had no idea what show I was watching until Triple H welcomed me to SmackDown. He said, "There is nothing in the world like WrestleMania." This was the patting on the back here. "There's nothing in the world like WrestleMania. The greatest athletes from around the world come to make history on the grandest stage of them all. A place where hearts are broken and dreams are fulfilled." And he again mentioned the 161,000 attendance figure at SoFi Stadium between the two nights. $21.6 million, sponsorship records broken, including, he said, on digital, almost 1 billion views this week online. Most of this promo was, again, it was rinse, repeat from Monday night, but he added in some more statistics here. I guess this was supposed to impress us. Are you impressed? Are you impressed that they hit a billion digital views this week? Does that change your view of WWE? This was like the Vince portion of the promo, is what this was. Then we got to some actual news. He said, "As great as WrestleMania was, it is behind us now. Now we look forward to the future." He said, "In just a few weeks, it is once again time for the WWE Draft. A night that changes the future and the destiny of every superstar in the back, until, of course, they start to completely ignore the draft and nothing ever really matters." But he said, "This year, the draft will be bigger than ever before with every star eligible for it." How is that different than past drafts? I mean, were there past drafts where, well, I mean, he could be referring to NXT, which was one of the questions I had. They've had certain drafts before, maybe it was only once or twice, where NXT was involved. Traditionally, they're not. The last time they did a draft, there was no NXT involvement, I don't believe. So maybe that's what he was referring to. But typically, Raw, SmackDown, the announcers, everybody is eligible, including champions. So I'm not really sure, if he's not referring to NXT, I'm not really sure how that's any different than past drafts. He said, "When all is said and done, this year's draft will truly change the game." And speaking of changing the game, he introduced us to the new SmackDown Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley. And before we get to Rhea Ripley and the Judgment Day, I'm going to reserve judgment on the draft until we get some more details, and frankly, until I actually see what they do on whatever date they choose. What they've done in the past is they'll have it over the course of 2 nights. So there'll be one draft night on a Friday for SmackDown, and then kind of the second part of the draft will be on a Monday for Raw. So usually it's a 2-day event like WrestleMania is. But I want to see how Triple H does this, because this would be, if you believe that this will be a Triple H draft, and I'm not so sure I believe that at all anymore, but this would be the first time that Triple H has the opportunity to go ahead and book a draft and get the roster set in the way that he wants. He is still working off of a Vince McMahon roster. Vince McMahon left, or so we thought, at the end of July. Triple H took over as the head of creative. There was talk there was going to be a draft in the fall. It didn't happen. He is still technically, with a few changes that have been made, working off of a Vince McMahon roster. He has yet to shake things up on his own and put together the roster that he would like to see. This would, in theory, if he is allowed the chance to do so, be the first Triple H draft. It's hard for me to sit here and get excited and say, "Oh boy, the draft is coming," because my attitude is, who cares? Really, who cares? There has been no attention paid to any, as far as the existing roster splits are concerned. There's been no attention paid to who belongs where, why people are allowed to go from one show to the other. Sometimes they'll just chalk it up. It's Royal Rumble season, right? When Royal Rumble is over, well, it's WrestleMania season. Well, if it's that easy to just ignore the rules, why even have a draft in the first place? People freely go back and forth between Raw and SmackDown. We have talent going from SmackDown to NXT. The New Day, only a few months ago, showed up in NXT unannounced, and became the NXT Tag Team Champions. There's no rhyme or reason for it. And if they're going to do a draft, one of the things I would like to see Triple H do, if he is given the ability to do so, because it's not up to him. This is no longer a Triple H show. Triple H can be the head of creative or the head of content or whatever his title is. It's just a title. It means nothing. Okay. He is no longer the head of creative in WWE. The head of creative is Vince McMahon. Triple H is like his puppet, right? He's in the role. He's almost like Bruce Pritchard, right? We know who the real head of creative is. But the hope is that Vince McMahon will allow Triple H to put together rosters the way that he wants to put the rosters together. But what I would like to see is for them to take it a little more seriously. And if you want to go and have talent go from Raw to SmackDown or vice versa, have a damn good explanation for it. Maybe it is time to have somebody that oversees Raw and somebody that oversees SmackDown instead of having Adam Pearce float back and forth. Nobody was more tired than I was of the whole general manager concept. It was so done to death and played out. It's been a few years now. And if they're going to have a true-to-life roster split, then it would make sense to have somebody whose responsibility it is to oversee Raw. Somebody can oversee SmackDown. Adam Pearce could be one of those people. And if people want to go back and forth, you can have segments on TV or post stuff up on social media. Okay, we reached an agreement today. So-and-so is going to have a big match on SmackDown next week. Or have trades. We've agreed to trade so-and-so from the Raw roster over to SmackDown. You can have certain pay-per-views and certain matches where if you want to have stakes on the line, you can have a draft pick. You can have, okay, the winning brand gets a member of the other roster. They've never fully taken advantage of the idea of an actual brand split, which is why I always say, what is the point of even having a draft? If you don't take it seriously, why even bother having one? So that's what I would like to see. If Triple H was actually given the fucking power to do so, would he take it more seriously than Vince McMahon ever did? Unfortunately, now I don't think we'll ever know because, again, we all know who's running the show there. But if he was left to his own devices, I would be very curious to see how a true Triple H draft would be booked. But this is going to be his chance to make his suggestions on who he thinks belongs where. And we'll see exactly how everything shakes out. The biggest question that I have about this, other than that, what are they going to do with the titles? I know a lot of people are very excited. They hear the word draft and they automatically think that, oh, finally, the titles are going to be split and Raw is going to have a champion again. And, well, the network wants to have a champion. We've been hearing that for a year. USA Network is not happy. They want to have a champion. Well, apparently they're not that pissed off because it's been a fucking year and we still have unified titles. So, yes, I'm sure USA would love to have a champion on Monday Night Raw more frequently, but I don't think they're banging down Vince's door saying, hey, you better do this or else. WWE will do what they want to do at their own pace. And I also think that if Roman is going to be a part-time guy and he barely ever shows up on Monday to go to work, and hey, good for him for getting that schedule, but it leaves a big gaping hole on Monday nights, you really should have a top champion on that show. Austin Theory is the de facto top champion on Monday Night Raw. That's unacceptable. But I think it would be a huge mistake to split the titles right now. If Cody Rhodes would have gone over at WrestleMania, if Cody Rhodes would have ended WrestleMania beating Roman Reigns, and now he is the brand new WWE Champion, Universal Champion, the Undisputed Champion, this would be the perfect time to have a draft and split the titles in the draft and say, we're going back to a model. The Universal title goes back to SmackDown. Cody, you're the WWE Champion on Raw because the WWE title is the one that's tied into the story, right, with his father. So that would be the title that he would keep on Monday Night Raw. And it would make all the sense in the world. But they didn't do that. They kept the belts on Roman Reigns. And now you have to keep the belts on Roman Reigns until Roman Reigns is defeated. Otherwise, whoever you give that WWE Championship to, it's going to feel like a consolation prize. You couldn't beat Roman. Nobody could beat Roman. So you'll be 2A here on the list. Roman is 1A, you could be 2A, right? You don't ever want your top championship to feel like that. You want to try to keep them on an even playing field if possible. Roman has yet to be beaten. When the time comes that Roman Reigns is defeated, then I think you explore the option of splitting the titles. Until that happens, I don't think the title should be split. It would be a bigger deal when the time comes for him to lose both belts at the same time. He's ended 3 straight WrestleManias holding those belts up high above his head. Well, actually 2. I take that back. Because WrestleMania 37, it was just the Universal title. 2 straight WrestleManias where he has held both belts above his head. 38 and 39. They make such a big deal about the fact that he is the undisputed champion. You're going to take one of the titles away from him before somebody has a chance to pin his shoulders to the mat? It'll be a much bigger deal when they pin him, and then you can do whatever you want at that point. They could have done that had Cody won at WrestleMania, but he didn't. And now I think you have to wait. Now would not be the right time, in my opinion. Now, the tag team titles, yeah, if they wanted to, they could split the tag team titles. I feel like the tag team divisions, frankly, on their own, individually, are still not strong enough to support 2 tag team champions. That's why I was very happy when they unified them in the first place. So, even with those, I'm in favor of having one set of unified tag team champions that are allowed to float between shows until they do a better job of calling up more tag teams and injecting some new blood into that division on both shows. So this stuff about splitting the titles and everything, yeah, I mean, I get it. I know why people are excited about that, but I don't think now is the time to do it, especially with the 2 top titles. I think you want to wait. I think Roman, he should be beaten for both belts. Then you can split them. Where NXT is concerned, is NXT going to be a part of this draft? Based on the language that Triple H used in his promo, it would seem that they probably will be. If he's saying that all superstars, all talent are eligible for this draft, why not include NXT? I know it's developmental, but it's its own brand. They're on USA Network, the same television network that airs Raw every Monday night. Why wouldn't you include NXT? You've had talent go from the main roster to NXT. New Day were tag team champions there. Apollo Crews is still on that roster right now in NXT. We've had Dolph Ziggler go down there and become NXT champion. There is no reason for them not to have some sort of involvement in this draft, and I think you use it as an opportunity to call up some new talent. I was very surprised that nobody got called up from NXT coming out of WrestleMania. Not even a promo, like a coming soon promo for anybody. This may be why. Because they knew the draft was coming in the next 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever it is, and they're saving it for the draft. That would make sense why we didn't hear anything this week about any NXT call-ups. Who could that be? Braun Breaker, who just looked like he turned heel this past week, but still, Braun Breaker, I think, is going to be up sooner than later. Grayson Waller, I think, is ready. I feel like he's done all he can do. I mean, he challenged for the NXT Championship a few months ago and failed to win. What else is left for him to do? He's ready. Cameron Grimes has been stuck in purgatory now for months and months. The hell's up with that? This guy's sitting at home just waiting to do something. He's waiting to go back to work. It's almost like crossing over from one world to the other, and then the portal gets shut, and he's been stuck. Cameron Grimes should absolutely be called up to the Raw roster or the SmackDown roster. Pretty Deadly. I was just talking about tag teams, right? There's a tag team that you can call up today to the main roster, and they would fit right in. They had a trial run. They went around with the main roster crew a few months ago on some of the live event loops. They supposedly got very good marks, very high marks. They're very well liked, and they're very talented. And it would be another tag team. Now, maybe, Vince turns them into the next Breezango or something, and they're just nothing more than a comedy team. But they're talented, former NXT UK Tag Team Champions, NXT Tag Team Champions. I would call up Pretty Deadly and add them to the tag team division. Zoe Stark on the female side. I think she's more than ready for a call up. Caden Carter and Katana Chance. They still have those women's tag team titles on the main roster. You need more women's teams? they have gelled and become a solid team, a very good team in NXT. You had two stars who were singles competitors put together in a makeshift team that have gelled and become a legitimate tag team. And they've had a tag team title run already down there. Get them up on the main roster. Now, again, all of these people are not going to be called up, but some combination of the names I just mentioned, and I could add more. I mean, there's plenty of UK talents on that roster that are more than ready. Now, I was singing the praises of Ilya Dragunov after the Stand and Deliver 5-way match. Call him up, put him on SmackDown. Whatever brand Gunther is on with Imperium, put Dragunov on that show. Tyler Bate. I mean, you can get a lot of people if you wanted to up on the main roster, but you don't want to throw them all up there at once. So, going to be very interesting to see whether or not NXT is included. I just don't see a reason for them not to be. So that's the what we know so far as the draft. The Judgment Day. We're in the ring with the new SmackDown Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley, with her new blue belt. First time since beating Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. Charlotte Flair apparently taking time off. Don't know how long. She took time off after WrestleMania Backlash last year. She took most of the year off. So she's going to go away for a while. We'll see what her status is coming out of the draft. She may come back as one of those undrafted free agents. Didn't they do that with John Cena? Wasn't he an undrafted free agent? She said that she did the impossible by destroying and dethroning Charlotte. She said it's time that everybody rises for her. Finn Balor spoke. He called Edge a sicko for splitting his head open just to get a win. He said that while he got 14 staples in his head, he's still standing while Edge is nowhere to be seen. I don't know if you saw this on Balor's social media, but he went into WrestleMania coming off of a grade 2 calf tear, which sounds very painful. And normally that grade 2 calf tear would be a 6 to 8 week recovery. He made it back in 3. And he posted a video with footage of him over the past several weeks, nobody knew, doing various forms of therapy. And, he worked his ass off to make sure that he could get cleared to perform at WrestleMania. And what did he get? He got 14 staples in his head as a thank you. So then Dominik took the mic. And this is great. Dominik is getting nuclear heat. I mean, this was as bad, but I mean that in a good way. This was as bad as it's ever been. When he goes to speak, and you could see, it wasn't just piped in crowd noise. You could see these people viscerally. They hate this man, right? They're on their feet and they're trying to drown him out with booze. He said, the person who sucks, they were saying you suck. He said, the person who sucks is a father who lays his hands on his own son. He claimed that he held back and he pulled punches at WrestleMania because he couldn't bring himself to hurt his own father. He said he knows where the lines are drawn, and now Ray and the rest of his family can go to hell and they can take Bad Bunny with them. They aired footage of Bad Bunny stopping Dominik from using a chain at WrestleMania in his match. And then the attack on Raw Monday night where Damian Priest put the Bunny through the announce desk with a chokeslam. Priest said that he hopes Bad Bunny can find it in his heart to forgive him, and then he smiled and he said that he forgives Bad Bunny for making him do something that he did not want to do. Rey Mysterio and Legado del Fantasma came out because we had a scheduled match here. It was supposed to be Dominik and Damian Priest against Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar. So they came out, they were all wearing LWO t-shirts. So this was not a one-off. This is, in fact, apparently this is going to be their new name going forward. I don't believe they are Legado del Fantasma anymore. They were introduced tonight as the LWO. It was Rey Mysterio and the LWO down to the ring. And I'm okay with that, actually. I mean, they own the IP, so they may as well use it. But I'm cool with an LWO return. So Dominik teased starting the match against his father, but then he tagged out to Damian Priest. And Michael Cole flipped out on commentary. He vented about how Dominik likes to talk like he's a big man, and then when he has the chance to step into the ring with his father to back up those big words, he bails out onto the apron. Ray drop-kicked Dominik into position for the 619 late in the match. Rhea pulled Dominik out of the way when Ray went to go swing in. Zelina Vega jumped from the apron, hit a Hurricane Rana that took down Rhea Ripley on the floor. Rhea was not happy about this, and she then chased Zelina into the crowd, and we didn't see them again. In the ring, Ray put Dominik in position for a 619 yet again, and he tagged in Escobar, then hit the 619. Escobar hoisted Dominik up, but Michael Cole noted that Damian Priest was the legal man, and Escobar did not know this. And Priest put him down with the South of Heaven chokeslam to win it for the Judgment Day. They gave this match away on TV. I thought this might be the match for Backlash. I thought, a couple months ago, I thought this might be the match. I was like, well, maybe they'll do Ray and Escobar at the show in Puerto Rico, and they'll do them against Damian Priest and Dominik, and that would be a way to get Escobar in a big match, right? Priest didn't even have a match at WrestleMania. The fact that they gave it away here on television tells me that Bad Bunny is going to wrestle. I wasn't sure if he was going to get back in the ring on that pay-per-view, or just be, the host, and maybe he'd be the referee or an enforcer or something, right? But between the angle they did on Monday, where apparently he was, quote-unquote injured, and the fact they already went and gave this away on TV, it looks like the match in Puerto Rico is going to be Ray and Bad Bunny against Dominik and Damian Priest. Now, the draft I mentioned, what happens with the Judgment Day? Because when you have factions, they could split up anybody. I'm thinking, the draft, who else are they going to split up? We know how fond Vince McMahon has traditionally been about splitting up tag teams. So maybe Triple H is not as fond as Vince McMahon was at splitting up teams, but at the very least, we know Vince is going to be looking over these roster moves, and he's going to have to put his stamp on it. There's no way that Triple H is going to book a brand split and come up with all of these moves and put them on a chart, and Vince is not going to move a name here, move a name there. He has loved breaking up tag teams for no reason at all whatsoever. But one team I could see being broken up is the Street Profits, because I think Montez Ford is on his way to his first really big singles run. He showed up at Elimination Chamber, and he was very impressive. I look ahead, I see him playing a very big role in this year's Men's Money in the Bank match, maybe even in the King of the Ring tournament. I don't see him winning Money in the Bank, but I would be surprised if he doesn't make it into that match. He is going to be going down the singles route. And I think the Street Profits have a very good chance of being broken up, which would mean there doesn't have to be a turn. There doesn't necessarily need to be a turn. They can split them up, stay babyface if they want them both to be babyface. But when you're a faction, the more people you have, the more likely it is that you're going to be split, which I wonder what that means for the Bloodline. But as far as the Judgment Day goes, I think that the Judgment Day is probably getting split in the draft. Rhea is on SmackDown now. She is the SmackDown Women's Champion. I could see Dominik, who's technically on Raw right now, I could see him landing on the SmackDown roster. So you kind of split the Judgment Day in half. The other two can stay on Raw. But what about, and I mentioned this last week when we first saw the LWO shirts pop up on TV. Dominik is the one who, about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, might have been 2 years ago, went on Twitter and posted a picture of the old LWO shirt and logo as if he wanted to bring back the LWO. Maybe he was only saying it jokingly. And I said, well, what if we end up with Dominik Mysterio leading the LWO? I think it's possible. Even though they've been siding with Ray and their baby faces now, it kind of felt forced. Like Escobar maybe is someone that Ray shouldn't be trusting, and in the end we're going to find, he's going to turn on Ray, which would be great because then we get Rey Mysterio and Escobar in a match, which I'd love to see. But all the more reason for me to embrace the idea that Dominik could very well be leading the LWO. I have no idea if that's what this, same thing they're thinking, but that's an idea that I could get behind. The Judgment Day has been fantastic for Dominik. It has allowed him to grow as a heel and come out of his shell and get more comfortable on promos and do more character work and skits. it's been fantastic for his career. I mean, the difference in him a year from now to today is just night and day. This would be a chance to see him leading his own group, which would be something new for him. So a Dominik-led LWO, I like that idea. I just put that out there into the atmosphere there. So if they're going to split the Judgment Day, that's something I would like to see them do. The kid's a heat magnet. You want to get the LWO some heat, you put Dominik with them, and you will get that faction some heat. Jey Uso was shown in the back. He was getting ready for his match with Sami Zayn. And Sami walked up to him and said, look, everything that I've predicted would happen has happened. The bloodline is crumbling. Said, Jimmy wasn't there tonight. Roman Reigns is mad at you. Solo Sikoa looked like he was ready to drop the hammer any given second. So Sami said that if Jey needed him to beat him this week and next week, or until he beats it into his head, then hey, that's exactly what he would do, but that's not how it has to be. All of a sudden, we heard a crash in the background. And Sami went running, and he found Kevin Owens on the floor with his leg trapped underneath one of those giant equipment cases. And Solo Sikoa was being held back by some officials, and Sami called the trainer over for some assistance, which led to our main event of the night. Sami Zayn one-on-one with Jey Uso. This was a match that some people in the lead up to WrestleMania actually tried to convince me. Actually, going into Elimination Chamber, they tried to convince me this should be the WrestleMania main event for the championship. Sami should beat Roman in Montreal and then defend against Jey Uso in the main event of WrestleMania. That would not have been the best idea to go with. So instead, we had it here tonight, though, in the main event of this show. Before the match, though, in Gorilla, Caleb Braxton tried to get one last word with Sami. Any update you can give us on Kevin Owens? And he said Owens was being treated right now, and he was right. He said Kevin was right in saying that the Bloodline and Jey Uso now are as dangerous as they've ever been, and I guess I'm just going to have to go it alone tonight. These two went out there. They had a solid match. Solo Sikoa walked down right before the final commercial break. He made his way down to the ring. Sami did hit the Blue Thunder Bomb for a near fall. Zayn slowly was climbing up to the top rope. Jey Uso cut him off. And Jey then grabbed the referee to distract him. And that distraction was enough to allow Solo Sikoa to do what he did to poor Cody at WrestleMania and deliver a Samoan spike, which the referee did not see. Jey Uso then landed a kick, and he picked up the win. After the match, Sikoa beat down Sami. He was going for the Samoan spike for a second time, and Jey Uso grabbed the hand, and he stopped him. And the fans cheered, and they started chanting Jey's name. They were teasing all night the possibility that someone might, or something, I should say, something bad might happen to Jey. Paul Heyman teased it earlier in the night, right? Like, he told Solo, if he doesn't solve our Sami Zayn problem, you go out there and you solve our problems. So between that and the speech before the match where it looked like Sami, he was trying to talk some sense into this guy, these fans desperately want to see Jey Uso turn against the Bloodline and turn against his cousin because they like him. And they know he's been manipulated throughout this entire story now for almost 3 full years, and they want to see him be the one to help bring down the Bloodline. And ultimately, Roman Reigns. Kind of light the fuse that leads to the explosion that results. So they were cheering for him, but instead, he only did that because he wanted to super kick Sami in the face himself, which is what he did. So they're beating him down, and all of a sudden, Matt Riddle's music plays. And Riddle runs down to the ring. He clears the ring of the Bloodline, makes the save for Sami Zayn. So, for now, Matt Riddle is still Matt Riddle. Just like Austin Theory is still Austin Theory. The reason they both lost their first names was because of Vince McMahon. So for now, for those of you keeping score, he still has his first name. If there's one thing Vince McMahon hates more than tag teams, it's people's first names, apparently. I was not expecting Riddle to come out here, but it does make sense. Riddle and Randy Orton both were taken out by the Usos many, many months ago. And it was Riddle who was taken out specifically by Solo Sikoa on Raw in December. And we had not, before this week, we had not seen him on television since. So in that respect, it made sense. But here's what did not make sense. As I watched Riddle come out, big ovation here when he came out to save Sami. This would have had far more impact if he didn't show up on Raw Monday night in what was a total throwaway segment in the final hour of the show. Miz went out there, and Matt Riddle just came out randomly, rode down to the ring on his scooter, fucking kangaroos are exploding out of his feet, beats up the Miz. Now they're going to have a match on television this Monday. That was the entire segment. Here, he came out to make the save in the main event, in the top angle on the show, and had a legitimate reason for doing so, because the last time we would have seen him, were it not for that dumb segment on Monday, was Solo Sikoa putting him in the hospital. Why then do the segment that they did on Monday? Why did that segment even need to exist? Just save him for this show. All you had to do was wait a few extra days. So that was stupid. So Backlash right now looks to be Sami, KO, and Riddle against the Usos and Solo Sikoa, because I assume Roman Reigns is not working that show. He'll probably work the show in Saudi Arabia, but I doubt Roman Reigns is going to be, I don't even think he's being advertised for Backlash. But you know the rest of the Bloodline are going to be there. So that would be the trios match that they would do. Cody against Brock Lesnar, I would think, would be on that show. But again, they could always save that for Saudi Arabia at the end of the month. It's possible. But let's assume Cody Rhodes against Brock Lesnar on the Puerto Rico show. Sami, KO, and Riddle against the Usos and Solo Sikoa. Rey Mysterio likely teaming with Bad Bunny against Dominik and Damian Priest. And based on her chasing her through the crowd tonight, and just based on the whole Judgment Day LWO thing, it looks like Rhea Ripley's first title defense is probably going to be against Zelina Vega. Or at least her first title defense on a major show will be against Zelina Vega. So that appears to be how the Backlash card now is coming together so far. This is a good show overall. I mean, I'm trying not to grade it on a curve, because that show on Monday night was one of the worst fucking Raw shows probably in years that they have done. And easily the worst of all the post-WrestleMania episodes of Raw. I'm talking about even going back to the 90s, when they had those 1-hour shows where they had some jobber matches and some other stuff. Even those shows didn't offend me the way that this show. That was 1 hour of shit on a bad night. This was 3. So this was by far the worst post-WrestleMania episode of Raw. Coming out of that, it was going to be hard for them to kind of drop the bar any lower without dropping it on their foot. And this was I think overall, this was a good show. But the shadow of the Irish Madman continues to loom large. Unfortunately, this is not going to go away. The poll on Monday was atrocious. The poll tonight is not as bad. It's not great, but 54% of you have given this television program a thumbs up. 28.7% thumbs in the middle, and 17% thumbs down. At Solomonster on Twitter is the place where you can go. That is where you can... Oh my God. What is with my hair? Look like I stuck my finger in a light socket. All right, let's go through your super chats here. It's a good thing I'm getting a haircut tomorrow. Let's go through your super chats here, including that bomb. I know it's in here somewhere from Paul Hamilton. Holy crap. Holy crap. And then we have to check and see if we hit our likes goal as well. Because the goal for tonight was well, look at that, 500. I was literally just about to go check. And there it is. You guys know how to put a smile on my face after a very stressful week of work. I do appreciate it. Fire Panda has a fun fact. Solomonster does not wear pants during the streams. That is why we never see his legs. How did you know? You spying on me? Brumakian Productions with the $10 super chat. I said if Vince comes back, I would stop watching. Well, I am fulfilling that promise. Now I can focus on playing video games and watch movies and anime. I'm still supporting your content, Solomonster. As long as you're still here. All that matters. J Glow with the $9.99. WWE killed off Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 39. I would bet the farm. Thinking of Stokely Hathaway. That Roman Reigns will break Bruno's record. They have no intention of taking the titles off of him. Thanks for all you do, GWO for life. I will bet you that $9.99 back that you are wrong and he will not break Bruno's record. To be clear, though, we're talking about because Bruno was champion more than once, so we're talking about the long 8-year reign that Bruno had. Groovy Goose, recently I found out that I will be graduating from university by the end of the semester. Your streams have helped through many study sessions. Thank you. Well, congratulations, Groovy Goose. I don't know if we have the cap and gown. There's a cap emoji anywhere, but if there was, I would throw them up for you. Jacob Harrison with the $5 super chat. Want to know if it is worth it to go to a stadium show like SummerSlam just for the experience. I'm having second thoughts on going to it in Detroit. If you've never been to it before, make sure you go. Yeah, I think everybody should go at least once. It's fun. It's fun. I've been to a bunch of stadium shows now, especially when, see, the thing with WrestleMania is that's where they really put the money and the effort into the stages and the setup. They don't really do that for SummerSlam or some of these other, like Royal Rumble. I mean, it looks nice, but they don't do it up the way they do it for WrestleMania. So I would almost tell you to wait for a WrestleMania. But if you're going to SummerSlam in Detroit and you've never been to a big stadium show like that before, you'll have fun. Bully the Cloud making an appearance here on the stream. Bobbert Reviews sending in the clowns. Bray Wyatt's #1 fan, aka Bliss Fan. Bliss Fan, I think he got some competition here. Bray Wyatt's #1 fan with a $4 super chat. With Cody losing at WrestleMania and then being destroyed by Brock, he is buried. With him out of the way, it is Bray's time to beat Roman at SummerSlam. I think I know who sent in the super chat. I think. Well, no, it would have to be somebody different if it's a different name. Unless he's got multiple burner accounts now. Vince McMahon's mustache sent a $20 super chat. Roman Reigns will defend the WWE Undisputed Championships against Omos at SummerSlam. Now Cody Rhodes can go back to that t-shirt company, damn it. What's it called? All Sports Entertainment Elite? What a bunch of nonsense. Thank you, Vince McMahon's mustache. Hey, Bliss Fan, now that I think about it, I could play matchmaker here. With you and Bray Wyatt's #1 fan. I think we can set you up on a blind date. We can vlog the entire thing. I'll put it on the channel. I guarantee it would go viral. I'd get 500,000 views. We got to make this happen. I'm going to help you out, Bliss Fan. I'm going to help you out. Me and Uncle Saudi are going to help you out. Dr. Dakota Scorpio, my last donation was all jokes. My bad. What was your last donation? I don't even remember what it was. You're expecting me to remember too far back here. And he also says the women's tag division is like a game on Whose Line Is It Anyway? One week you're partner with this person, next week you got another partner. Yeah. It really is. Rizzo. Let's see. Oh, wait. So he's got a two-parter here. Good evening, chat, says Rizzo. This might be a hot take, and I want to get your opinions. I feel Solomonster... Woo! I thought he was saying me. Solo Sikoa. I almost said Solomonster Sikoa here. That's a Photoshop waiting to happen. I put my head on Solo Sikoa's body with the taped up thumb. Have all my tribal tats on me. I feel Solo Sikoa is going to be the one to turn on and destroy the Usos on orders from Roman. They return at SummerSlam to help Cody, and Jey is the one who delivers the kick that ends up costing Roman the title, therefore leading to an Usos versus Roman and Sikoa story. I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think that's actually very sensible. I can see that happening. Aussie of Steel. Some predictions for NXT call-ups in the draft. Braun Breaker, Grayson Waller, Roxanne Perez, Pretty Deadly, Katana Chance, and Caden Carter. I think I named every single one of those people except Roxanne. I didn't mention Roxanne. I don't think she's being called up just yet. The Solomonster Spike. Yes, that would be my finishing maneuver, actually. The Solomonster Spike. I like it. You know what else I like about it? If I mimic Solo Sikoa, I never have to speak. I feel like all I do every week is speak. I'm streaming almost every day here, every other day. I would like to not speak. I want to be like Sting in 1996. He didn't speak for like over a year. James Cooper, are you ready for WrestleMania 40? Where Michael Cole says Philadelphia over and over. Philadelphia? Is there some significance to that? Hey, Bobby's World, thank you for the gifted membership. We also had somebody earlier on, and let me see if I have it here. I do not, but I will go back and check the name after. I know somebody gifted 5 memberships, and then somebody else gifted. So all the people who have gifted memberships to various channel members tonight, thank you very much. We are working towards nearly 700. That is very cool. Yeah, Sting didn't speak for almost 2 years, says Mr. J. You know what's funny about that? Now that you bring that up, Sting goes through close to 2 years, right? 18 months, whatever it was, of never speaking. And then he wins the WCW Championship from Hollywood Hogan. A Aussie of Steel, 8 months strong. Channel member, salute to you. But he goes all this time without speaking. We have the terrible finish, and we could talk about Starrcade 97, but he wins the match. All the talent bum rushes him in the ring, and they're celebrating with him. Do you know that Sting spoke his first words on that night? It was that very night of Starrcade 97. He looked into the camera, and I don't remember the exact words, the exact verbiage, but I know that it ended with Mamacita. He said something, Mamacita. So if you were wondering, what was the first words out of Sting's mouth after he won the WCW Championship? He was so excited that he just started yelling Mamacita. And I don't know why. I guess Sting likes the Mamacitas. To this day, I have no idea why or what he was talking about. But boy, was he excited. Lakers Pats. If Ray wore a condom, he would not have a condom. You know, that's like a Paul Heyman-esque super chat. That is true. I know a few people in this life where if their parents would have used practice safe sex, it would have saved me a lot of headaches. I won't name them, though, if I don't want to hurt their feelings. WWE Wrestling and Gaming. Who's John Cena's greatest rival? I feel like I've answered this question before. I think I've talked about this on the podcast. His greatest rival, some people say Edge. I think I tend to lean towards CM Punk. I would go probably CM Punk. I've said this before, just because he and Randy Orton had 200,000 matches together. I know Michael Cole on television was always told, you gotta mention it's a classic rivalry. No, it's not. No, it's not. Just because you get in the ring and wrestle somebody over and over and over and over and over again does not automatically make it a classic. I would go CM. 0.216. Over-under on Randy Orton ever wrestling again, given the news today that he is nowhere close to returning to in-ring action. I believe he will wrestle again. Just because he's not close to being back in the ring yet does not mean that his career is over. I do believe we will see him back in the ring. I believe we will see him back in the ring this year. Assassin number 1. The draft kind of seems like Damage Control, not the group. Thank you for clarifying. Especially since the roster supposedly didn't know about it being announced tonight. Well, I mean, they don't. What do they need to know? I mean, it's a creative decision, and all they were doing was making the announcement. So they found out tonight. It's not like they sprung the actual draft moves on them. They've done that before, also. I mean, I see what the big deal is. That's fine. Slim Yoshi. Let's have a moment of silence for Xavier Woods' PS5 controller. Those controllers are expensive. Treat your controllers with care. I think they pay him well enough he can buy a new controller. WWE Wrestling and Gaming. Are guys like Lesnar and Cena and others eligible for the draft as well? That is very interesting. He did say that all talent would be eligible, so I took that to mean that all talent will be eligible. All right. Just taking him at his word. All talent are eligible according to Triple H. So Vince McMahon says. Bobbert Reviews with a $50 Goonthar Super Chat. Man, that's going back a week. That's early. It's like over an hour. I wonder if that means Solomonster is eligible for the draft. I might be drafted to another YouTube channel. It's possible. I wonder if podcasters can be drafted as well. I might get drafted to a different channel. Bobbert says, although I enjoyed SmackDown tonight, I am still going to do my best to support other shows like AEW, Impact, and Reality of Wrestling. That's Booker T's promotion. Shout out to Reality of Wrestling. They've been turning out a lot of talent, good talent, over these past several years. I'm worried about the direction of WWE that it is going in with Vince McMahon being back. Well, after Monday, I think you would have good reason to be worried. Tonight was better. We'll see what this Monday brings us. Solomonster drafted to Wrestle Talk. Oh, come on. Don't talk like that. I don't know how many people want to see that. It's Bullsy with the $20 Super Chat. I was just about ready to watch wrestling regularly again after WrestleMania until Raw happened, and I was like, nope. Also, segment with Miz and Matt was a waste of time anyway. It was a gigantic waste of time in light of what they did tonight. Julian Shaw with a 1999. Hottest Portland crowd I've experienced live in 7 years. Could Dominik be a main event heel post-Ray? His heat was like lava. P.S. Thanks for the spectacular WrestleMania coverage. Thank you very much, Julian. Yeah. Do I think he could be a main event heel eventually? Yeah. I think so. Not right now. It's still very early. He's still learning. But do I think eventually, within a few years, I could see him in that position? Yeah. Yeah, if he can maintain this kind of heat, continue to improve, continue to find himself and find his groove. And then we'll see how he does when he's not attached to a faction and he has to go out on his own. That, to me, is going to be the real test. When he doesn't have Ray to lean back on, or the Judgment Day, or Mommy, or the LWO, if he actually did end up leading the LWO. How would Ray do, or Dominik, on his own? How does he do when he eventually goes back to being a babyface, right? I mean, there's still a lot that we don't know as far as what he can and cannot do. But Triple H is supposedly very happy with his progress so far, and I can understand why. But Dominik Mysterio as a main event heel, if that were to ever happen, I mean, that's still years away. We're not talking months, we're talking years. Rizzo with the $10 Super Chat. Christopher in the chat says, Solomonster drafted to OSW. Irish Coffee. Shout out to the OSW. Yeah, Solomonster Simon Miller tag team. Rizzo says, HBK, our guys and girls in NXT need more work in front of crowds, pal. So I'm announcing Stand and Deliver on August 27th. And another PLE on September 3rd. You thought I was joking when I tweeted that the other night when they announced the date of the Wembley Stadium show, and I said, oh, NXT Fully Loaded is coming on Sunday, August 27th. I wasn't really totally joking about that. I said, and then Shawn Michaels can play dumb like, well, we didn't do it because of that. It just happened to fall on that day. It was a good day for us. You know, come on, it's a holiday overseas. We thought, hey, our UK fans will be home and they'll be able to watch our show. Turtlehead, Brock thought him and Omos was a main event match. Yeah, another reason why it's just a very stupid explanation. Yeah, the idea that he would be mad because Cody went on last for the championship and he didn't in a non-title. I mean, the whole explanation is just so dumb. It really is. No thought put into it. Hopefully it was some sort of red herring they had Wade Barrett throw out there, and then look, I don't know if Brock will even be on the show on Monday, so who knows when we'll get the actual explanation from him. But I think they could do a lot better than that. Hashway with a 1992. Hope you were doing well. Solo Brett. You forgot the space. I thought you said Solo Brett. You merged the two legends together. He said, hope you are doing well, Solo. Bret Hart, Mets, Cats, in that order. Again, I appreciate the work you put in covering the actual wrestling and wrestling drama. I liked the musical chair segment a few years ago. A few years ago? That was like back in 2000. My God, what year was that? Probably 2004, I think. 2004, 2005. That's more than a few years ago. But yeah, the musical chair segment. You know, one of my regrets when I did my top list of Raw segments, there were a couple that I wanted to have on there and I just forgot to include them. One of them was the musical chair segment. I think they were in Toronto that night. And the other one was Dr. Austin. I forgot Dr. Austin. I forgot to put that on the list. But yeah, Hashway, it's been like 20 years, brother. It's more than a few. T-Mac. SmackDown and Raw's Triple H promos could have been combined to one concise 5-minute promo. Come on, H. You could have just sent this in an email. They were in Winnipeg. Okay. So the musical chairs was in Winnipeg. It was not in Toronto. I knew it was in Canada. Joseph Brooks, buy, rent, sell on who do you think was the best star and wrestler of the Anoa'i family? The Rock, Yokozuna, and Roman Reigns. The best star and wrestler, I mean, again, it's not necessarily one and the same, so it's a hard question to really answer. But if I had to rank them, Rock would be number one. Roman would be two. I mean, how can you argue about the run he's been on? And Yoko would be three. Yeah, the sad thing about Yoko is his run really wasn't very long. And he let his weight get out of control, and had he stayed healthy, who knows how many good years he would have had in him. I mean, when he first came in and he was around, you know, I mean, they said 505. Legitimately, he was probably, you know, low to mid fours, but then his weight really did get into the fives and the sixes. But when he was even like 500, I mean, the way he would move around the ring, and he was very impressive. Now, imagine if he would have lost all that weight like they wanted him to. I mean, who knows how many more good years he could have had, but I got to put him on the bottom of the list. His run was actually very small. Paul Hamilton with the $150 Super Chat bomb. Again, thank you, Paul. Thank you for repping the podcast tonight in Portland. When they go to Portland and we need some podcast representation, we know exactly who's going to be there in the front row. Just like Fawaz, our boy Fawaz, is always repping the podcast in Saudi Arabia. He'll probably be at the King of the Ring next month. Did Yoko really get to 600? No, Yoko got to legitimately, I believe it was either 800 or close to 800 pounds. And I do believe that. I don't believe that was some sort of work number. I believe legitimately at his most morbidly obese, probably not long before he passed away, he was legitimately at least upper 700. I mean, it was bad. He couldn't get licensed in a lot of states. That's why WWE had to stop using him. He was under contract with them until 1998. He did not wrestle for them at all in 1997. They kept him under contract and paid him, I think, through like May of 98 or something. He couldn't get cleared. You know, he just couldn't get licensed. What promoter would want to take the chance of allowing somebody like that to get in the ring and drop dead in the middle of the ring? I mean, it's just crazy. You know, some people, it's just that it's an illness, and you know, the stories of him and Vader both being sent basically to fat camp is what they called it. You know, it's like a weight loss clinic. Because WWE wanted both of them to lose weight, and they were, you know, like at night, they were checking out and going and eating fried chicken. You know, it's like they didn't even take it seriously. I think Cornette's told that story also. Jamie Dorsch with a $10 super chat. Have you seen the clip of Jim Ross on Live Wire losing it on fans calling in? Was he supposed to be a heel? Are there any other good moments from Live Wire? Yeah, I remember the... he was wearing like a sweater shirt, right? Oh my God. Bobby's World just activated Brie mode for $25. Brie mode activated. I do remember that Jim Ross clip. I don't believe he was supposed to be a heel. I think there were some terrible people. Not terrible people. I shouldn't say terrible people. Terrible calls coming into the show, and he just got tired of it. You know, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and Jim Ross is like, I don't want to deal with this shit. But you talk about Livewire, I mean, you got to think about the Paul Heyman moment. Paul Heyman called in as Bruce from Connecticut, and they ended up cutting him off. So that to me is the most memorable moment, the most memorable call in Livewire history. There was another one where they had Stone Cold on in the early days of Stone Cold, and there was a woman who called in, and she was very upset that he used a lot of foul language, and she was asking him to like tone down the language, and then of course he just went off on her. There were some gems in there. I gotta check and see if they have Livewire on Peacock. I don't know if they have a section for that or not. Somebody tell me, do they have a section on the network with episodes of Livewire? I thought they did. If so, it would be on there. Maruthi Ram with the $10 super chat. Speaking of LA Knight, wasn't he supposed to be the promise of a Hollywood WrestleMania moment? If so, why wasn't he? Is that talented fella in line for being the next target in WWE's layoff list? Supposedly there was a segment scheduled for night 2 with Bobby Lashley and LA Knight, and it got scrapped. And we don't know why. Oh, I think we know. So it ended up not happening, and Bobby just came out and posed with his stupid trophy, and that was all he did. It was supposed to be a whole open challenge. Clearly they had plans, and it got changed. You mean to tell me with 2 nights of WrestleMania, you have to cut an entire segment like that? You don't have time? Yeah, that segment got cut. It got cut for a reason. Dan Teller, I'm baffled about the Brock and Cody segment and Raw. What was that about? Is Brock realigning with Paul Heyman? No, I don't believe he is. Gerald Murray. Well, before I get to Gerald, I see somebody mentioned the story in the chat. So yeah, the story about the finish to the 97 Royal Rumble getting changed. Bret Hart was going to win the 1997 Royal Rumble. And what happened is, on Livewire, they had Vince Russo, Vic Venom, Vince Russo, the editor of the WWF magazine, who, by the way, there was at least one episode of Livewire with Russo and Cornette. They were on together, which is wild to think about now. But yeah, they asked, and I think Vince was on too. Vince might have been on that same episode. They asked Russo who he thought was going to win the Royal Rumble match. And he said Bret Hart, who was scheduled to win the Royal Rumble match. Vince all of a sudden freaked out and decided, well, we have to change it now. He goes, why? He goes, because you gave away the finish. And Russo's logic, and I actually agree with Russo on this, is that most people expected that Bret Hart was going to win the Royal Rumble that year. I didn't give anything away. I just gave my opinion. My opinion is also the opinion of a lot of people watching. Vince said, oh, you spoiled the finish. That's why they changed the finish. They did that screwy ending with Austin going over, even though Bret technically won. Vince said, no, you gave the finish away. You gave the finish away. We've got Gerald Murphy. So if Brock and Omos was the main event, he would be chill. He'd be the only one. Angel Silva, while waiting for the wrestlers to leave Raw this past Monday, Dominik got into a narco-looking truck, and as he drove away, he flipped everyone off. I saw the video. Yeah, that was great. As the car is driving, he just put the middle finger up and flipped everybody off. That's great. Winston Smith, your favorite Intercontinental title match of the last 20 years. You just saw it on Sunday. Gunther, Drew McIntyre, and Sheamus. Well, actually, that was WrestleMania I was talking about. I'm trying to say, did I enjoy that better than Clash at the Castle? Because Clash at the Castle was my WWE match of the year. No, I probably would go with the match at WrestleMania. I think I might go WrestleMania 39, the triple threat match. Zachariah Sitchin, for the time being, do they need to treat the draft like they did Veer Mahan last year? At least until Roman loses the belts. We have a bunch of people in the chat saying Bret Hart against Mr. Perfect. You do realize that he said the last 20 years. Had he said all time, my answer would have been different. But he didn't ask all time. He said the last 20 years. Bret Hart against Mr. Perfect was not in the last 20. I wish it was, but it was not in the last 20 years. So you misunderstood his question. Zachariah, though, thank you. He also says, do you think Cody defeating Brock depends on Brock's contract status, or does Vince still put Brock over, even with him not re-signing with the company? If Brock is doing an angle with Cody Rhodes now, then obviously they extended it. He's not working without a contract. Who do you think Vince McMahon is, Tony Khan? He's not going to have Brock working without a contract. I actually think there's a very good chance Cody is going to lose to Brock, because they're going to want him to maybe have a second match. Just because, they're going to have a match doesn't mean that it's only going to be one. The program will be over when Cody beats Brock. That does not mean Cody beats Brock in match number 1 if they're going to do a rematch. Cody could very well lose again. Bobbert with the $30 Bully the Clown. WWE are most likely going to split the tag titles because of Kevin Owens' injury. I don't know. It's possible. I still think that we're probably going to get that 6-man tag at Backlash. If they do it, then, he'd have to be back in time for the pay-per-view. Well, what would be the purpose of splitting the titles? I mean, if he's injured, you have to strip them of the titles altogether. I don't get the purpose. If someone's injured, we'll split the titles. Yeah, but they're still going to have one set of titles, so it doesn't really make any sense. Julian Shaw with a $9.99. Dark matches. Austin Theory beat Dolph Ziggler. Solo Sikoa against Matt Riddle ended in a DQ with Jey interfering. Sami chased out the heels with a chair to send the crowd home happy, humming worlds apart. DH Sires. Draft is on May 8th. Raw after Backlash. Reported by a Twitter account. Well, I'll wait until it's reported by somebody else. They could be right, but again, I'm cautious when it comes to getting news off of random Twitter accounts that were created 2 months ago. Can you see SmackDown being the land of opportunity like in 2016? I would like to see both shows be the land of opportunity. Why should one show be the land of opportunity and the other one be, what would you call Raw? I was going to say purgatory. What's worse than purgatory? Hell? I guess hell, right? Oh, actually, I take that back. That's worse than hell. Howlin' Mad Murdoch. Just howl at me. Brie mode. $25 super chat. HBKC83. If you had your own wrestling company, what would you name it? Would call it Brie Mode Wrestling. BMW. There you go. Brie Mode Wrestling. Slim Yoshi with the $10 super chat. On a much lighter note, who's planning on seeing the Mario movie? I go to see it tomorrow. What was your favorite Mario game, Solomonster? Mine was Super Mario Bros. 3 on Game Boy Advance. Mine was actually Super Mario Bros. 3 on not Game Boy Advance, just the regular game. And Super Mario World on the SNES. Those are my two favorites. And Mario Kart on Nintendo Switch, which that was the first game I bought when I got the Switch. At the time, I was like, oh man, I would love to do like Sound Off Gamers and actually like I do for 2K, the 2K games, and do Mario Kart, but you know, how to hook everything up and everything. And I think at the time, Nintendo wasn't even allowing gameplays for that. Now maybe they are, but I know they were cracking down on stuff for a while, but I wouldn't even know how to do it and how to get everything hooked up. I don't know if there would be interest in that. But yeah, I'd go Super Mario 3 and then Super Mario World. Dr. Dakota Scorpio. The Bray Wyatt donation was me. Ah, I see. So then we have to try to get Dr. Dakota Scorpio and Blissfan together on a date. You're the lucky guy, Dr. Dakota Scorpio. Brandon Vasquez. I believe that the Lock should be the one that ends Roman's title run. Yes, I am the Lock in 2K23. We have one episode up on the channel, and I'm hoping that the next few days I'll be able to record episode 2. We're going to see how the Lock does. That's my gimmick. Manuel, I went bowling yesterday, finally. Do you remember my bowling super chat from a while back? It was actually a pretty fun experience. I do remember the bowling. I believe I completely misunderstood the super chat too. I think I went after you for, I think you said that you were, did you say that you were like shy or something about going bowling? I totally misread your super chat. I think what you were saying is that you were going out with a girl, you didn't know her friends. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. I think for whatever reason, I thought you meant something completely different. I said, what's wrong with bowling? Bowling is fun. So yes, I do remember your super chat. And it is a fun experience. Bowling is fun. Bowling is fun. I remember in one of the Coliseum home videos, Slick took Kamala to go bowling at a bowling alley. Dan Taylor, my favorite baseball team are the St. Louis Cardinals and the Yankees. Do you have favorite baseball teams? You can't have multiple teams. What kind of fan are you? You gotta pick one. Favorite baseball teams? But I was raised as a Yankees fan since 1996. How long have you been a Mets fan? I have been a Mets fan since 1980. I guess it would be 86 or 87. The earliest yearbook I have is from 87. I still have it somewhere. So I think that was the first year I actually went to my first Mets game. The same year as WrestleMania 3. So I guess 87. Funny enough, they have not won a championship since then. Love Lie, I'm convinced that there is nothing in that mug. Well, the world may never know. Miguel in the chat says, Wade Keller said Drew is unhappy with his current situation due to creative and money. I still believe the WWE is going to make every effort to keep Drew McIntyre, but boy, I don't know when his contract is up. Supposedly it's later this year. They have yet to come to terms on a new deal. Later this year can mean anything. It could be the end of the summer. It could be the end of the year. Tony Khan is going to be going to Wembley Stadium. Can you imagine if Drew McIntyre became a free agent before then? And could lure Drew McIntyre over and he can get Drew on that Wembley Stadium show. That would be big. But I have no idea when his contract is actually. And I still, look, I think at the end of the day, they're not going to let him go to AEW. They're going to do everything in their power to keep Drew McIntyre in that company. Boney with the $5 super chat. With the merger, WWE does go towards a UFC $80 pay-per-view model. After the Peacock deal is up, do you see Mania staying 2 nights? Yeah, I think WrestleMania is 2 nights going forward. They make too much money on it. They're able to go out there and say, hey, we did 160,000 fans in one weekend instead of saying we did 80,000. I could see them coming up with some sort of package deal. If you only buy 1 night of WrestleMania, it could be $50. But if you buy 2, maybe you get a discount. You get it for $10 or $20 off. I don't think they're going to go to an $80 model. That's UFC. Just because UFC charges $80 doesn't mean WWE would do the same thing. If anything, I would see the WWE shows being 50 or 60. But I would think for WrestleMania, you would have to offer some sort of package deal. That way you get a discount. But there's going to be a lot of people who are not willing or able to spend that much money every single month on these pay-per-views. Brandon Vasquez, buy or sell the more prestigious accomplishment. Taker's 21-0 WrestleMania streak or Flair and Cena's 16 world title reigns. The more impressive accomplishment. I would say the world title reigns just because it means that you are constantly involved in the main event picture. So you're making main event money over that period of time. So for that reason, I would lean towards the 16 world title reigns. You know, it's not that hard if you think about it. It's not that hard for the promoter to just go, look, we're going to have you undefeated at this once a year annual event that we do. So we'll, in your one WrestleMania match every year, you're just going to win. Like, okay. But to win 16 world titles, you're a consistent main event player, which is where you would want to be, right? That's where the money is. But I still say I would much rather be a one-time champion with a long reign, right? 1 or 2 times, than have 15 world titles. To me, it's more impressive to have one, like the reign that Roman Reigns is on right now. That to me is more impressive than having a bunch of smaller, because then you win it, you lose it, you win it, you lose it. It's much more impressive to have a run like Roman Reigns is on right now. Bobby's World with the $25 Brie Mode Super Chat. Sorry, bro, had to hit you with it at least once. Saw something on Twitter about Vince sending Triple H to the ring so Vince could steal his seat at Gorilla. It would not surprise me. Yeah, you saw that from me. I tweeted that yesterday. What are you talking about? Who are you following? You should only be following me. Don't follow anybody else. I tweeted that yesterday. I said I would not be. I said Vince is being slick. He's sending Triple H to the ring, and as soon as he gets up out of that chair, he slides right into the chair. And when Triple H comes back, Vince is in his seat. Wouldn't surprise me. Rizzo with the $5. So I gave that podcast you recommended a shot, and the first episode I listened to was about pregnancy. What podcast? What podcast are you talking about? Pregnancy. Howlin' Mad Murdoch with the $25. I was digging through my old stuff and found a tape that my cousin gave me in 1994 with a WrestleMania rap. I don't remember much about the song except the intro asked if we were ready for Survivor Series. Well, that's the WrestleMania song. Yeah, that part never made much sense to me either. I feel like originally maybe the song was, they used that part from a different song, but then why would it be in this song? I don't know. Yeah, no, that's Roddy Piper, it sounds like. It sounds like his voice. He's saying, I said, are you ready for the Survivor Series? And then you hear Mean Gene go, who will survive? But then they go into a WrestleMania rap. It doesn't make any sense. I love that song, though. They first used that for WrestleMania 9. For years, that was the WrestleMania anthem. It's still, to this day, Linda McMahon's anthem. Retro KOH, did you ever play Mario Odyssey? I think you would have loved it. I never did, no. Tyrell Young, what 5 wrestlers need to be pushed when the draft happens? LA Knight, LA Knight, LA Knight, LA Knight, and I would say LA Knight. Thunder Force 2000, if we had gotten The Rock against Randy Orton, when do you think was the best time to do it? WrestleMania 20. And if not WrestleMania 20, then WrestleMania 21. I know Rock wanted to work a match with Randy Savage at WrestleMania 21, which was never going to happen. But that was also right before his contract. They let his contract expire, and he was very offended by this. So Rock and WWE, they did not do business together for about 8 years after that. That was the end of 2004. But yeah, WrestleMania 20 or WrestleMania 21. Bobby's World, also a Mets fan since 86. My grandmother gave me the Amazing Mets 25th anniversary VHS tape, and I now know that thing by heart. Those were the days, man, the 86 Mets. Timothy Tillis, did you by some chance hear about the Vicky Guerrero situation concerning her daughter? I did, and I am going to talk about that on the podcast on Sunday. Now that I have heard from both sides, I was asked about this earlier in the week, I think before Vicky even responded. But then her other daughter chimed in. It's a really sad, demented situation. But yeah, I got something to say about that on the podcast on Sunday. Casper the Barbarian with the $9.99. What is up, Solomonster? What is up, Casper? Can you name some of your favorite segments from the bad storylines, i.e. the Rock Stone Cold sing-along and the Paul Heyman shoot from the Invasion? Much love, been a fan since 2014. Favorite segments from bad storylines? I have to think about that. I mean, as far as bad storylines are concerned, it's funny you already kind of killed what my answer would have been since you brought up the Invasion. Actually, the Invasion gave us some good segments. Not just the ones that you mentioned here, but even some of the comedy stuff with Austin and Kurt Angle in the summer when Austin was hurt and he couldn't work. I mean, I don't know. Offhand, I'd have to think about some of the bad storylines. Yeah, you know, Santino and the Tea Party, though, that wasn't a bad storyline. That was... What was the storyline there? That was a great segment, by the way. Tea Time with Santino with Vladimir Kozlov and Sheamus. You are lacking the pigment in your skin. Let me give you some milk, like your skin is milky white. I don't know how Sheamus... He was trying... I've never seen Sheamus try so hard not to laugh. Oh, you know what? That's a great point. Thank you, Brandy in the chat. Al Snow and the Big Boss Man. That is actually a great answer. And also Big Boss Man and the Big Show. There were some really tasteless segments, but Boss Man was such a great fucking heel. He was so great in those stories. I mean, he fed Al Snow's dog to him. He told the, you know, he crashed the Big Show's father's funeral with a bullhorn, and then chained the casket to his car and drove off with it. I mean, he did some heinous shit in what was really some terrible storylines, but I did enjoy those segments. I'm not gonna lie. Rizzo, imagine if WWE and UFC start their own streaming service. Both companies have TV rights coming up. Ariel said UFC is a year after WWE. Could you see them doing their own ESPN or another service picking up both? I mean, I could see another service picking up both, but they're going to be, you know, separate channel. It'd be like Peacock, for example, right? Let's just use them as an example. Right now on Peacock, you have the WWE tab. Could I see a streaming service pick up both and have basically separate tabs, one for WWE and one for UFC? Yeah, I could see that. But again, they're not, I don't believe they're shopping their rights together, though. Well, but Nick Khan, did Nick Khan say that's a possibility? I think he said the streaming rights could be. Yeah, their linear TV deals are separate. But I think what Nick Khan said the other day is that there's the possibility that they could shop them both. Could I see it actually happening? Yeah, I think it's possible. I think if somebody wanted them both under the same service, here's a WWE section, here's a UFC section. Bobby's World said, oh, my bad on the Twitter thing. It's all good. Just make sure you're following at Solomonster. Rizzo says it was a motivational podcast by Zoe. I forgot her last. Oh, yes. I couldn't imagine what podcast you were talking about, because I promoted a few, but yes, that was a few months ago. And I actually heard from a couple of people who said that they found the podcast to be very helpful and insightful. So I would recommend that podcast to anybody who is interested in those types of issues. Just don't remember the full name. I want to give the specific title of the channel, and offhand I don't remember the exact name of the channel. Retro KOH. Oh wait, hold on. Juan says, thank you, Solo, for saying Mario and not Mario. Retro says, speaking of Rock in 05, do you think there is any connection between Vince letting Rock's contract elapse and Rock wanting Savage at Mania, given Vince's heat with Savage? No, I don't think that had anything to do with it. I don't think one had anything to do with the other. I just think there was some, and I don't buy the whole oversight thing either. How do you let the Rock's contract lapse? Oh, it was a clerical oversight with one of your biggest names. There was some sort of vindictiveness going on there, and I'm just not sure why. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it had anything to do with Randy Savage. Timothy Tillis, Solomonster, please dethrone Roman Reigns. You are our last hope. I don't know, I'm a little bit busy right now with House of Glory. I have obligations there. In fact, we have a show a week from tonight, so it's very likely, I don't know what's going on right now with the commentary situation for that show, but it is very likely I will be there next Friday, which if I am, would mean no SmackDown stream next week, so just be aware of that. I will let you guys know for sure next week. Hey, Bobby, thank you for the gifted membership. Tony Biquette, WWE has 3 long reigning champions. Do you think it is good for each of the titles, or do you think it is being overdone? I think they have to be very careful, because we don't need that many long title reigns at the same time. It gets boring. So I'm all for a strong, longer championship run. We see it with Roman. We see it with Gunther. I think that's fine. But do we need 3 of them at the same time, or 2 of them at the same time? I don't think we do. It just gets very boring after a while. Gotta have some variety. EJ Slemp, the $4.99. My other 2 favorite Santino segments were his We Are the Champions parody and his rap about William Regal. Rapping singer Acorn gets me every time. They do a Brady Bunch skit playing off the old Brady Bunch intro, called it the Santino Bunch. Retro KOH just gifted a channel membership to Brandon McNeil. I love the sea of green that we have in the chat. Throw up those GWO emojis, by the way. Now that you have access to them, if you're a channel. I love the sea of green that we have. It's amazing. Howlin' Mad Murdoch. I enjoyed Farouk calling into Livewire and totally trashing Ahmed Johnson. Also, Bossman going to the Big Show's mother's house and yelling at her, revealing the truth about his pair. That's right. Big Show went to, Bossman went to Big Show's mother's house and forced his mother on live television to call her son a bastard. Now that's a heel. That's heel heat right there. Rizzo says, my apologies, I meant WWE's PLE and UFC's pay-per-views being on the same streaming service. Well, again, I mean, if they're potentially shopping the streaming rights around, then it's possible they end up on the same service, yes. I don't know how likely it is. Do I think it's possible? Yeah, sure it is. They get a big enough deal, a big enough offer from a streaming service that wants both. It could be a very lucrative deal for them. Rizzo says, accidentally intentional. That's right. It was Zoe Asher. That was the name. I couldn't remember the name. Just search for it on YouTube. Accidentally intentional. Zoe Asher. Casper. Buy, sell, rent on the biggest match not seen. HBK against The Rock, Taker against Sting, or Brett versus Kurt. The biggest would be HBK and The Rock. The one that I wanted to see the most, Bret Hart and Kurt Angle. But the biggest marquee match would have been Shawn and Rock. Your boy Ed with the $4.99. Hey, Solomonster. There's Solo Bane. Says, hey, Solomonster, given Cody brought up that he wants a rematch, when do you think it takes place? SummerSlam, King of the Ring, or WrestleMania 40? SummerSlam. Lady Fire Panda with the $20 super chat. Despite what a certain doctor in the chat thinks, WrestleMania Night 2 was not a good night. Not only did I lose my title as the queen, but I lost my spot as an Homo sapien. I gotta find somebody else to like, possibly Corbin. There was no Corbin on the shows this week, was there? At least that's one positive. You take those little victories where you can get them, right? So the goal tonight was 500 likes on the video, and I am proud to say that we are currently, and climbing, we are currently at 622. And you guys are also killing it with the super chats and the memberships. I mean, this is like WrestleMania continued here. So thank you very much. And let us go ahead and be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
It is always time to be the booker here at the end of the stream. We have come once again to the end. And we will begin on the men's side of Be the Booker. We got a lot of names in here. I actually cleaned a few out the other day to give it a good update. And first choice is Chris Jericho, the former AEW World Champion, Ring of Honor World Champion. Only man in history to beat Rock and Stone Cold in the same night to become the undisputed champion. Intercontinental Champion, Tag Team Champion, European Champion. He may have been the Hardcore Champion. I don't remember offhand. He may have been. Chris Jericho has a lot of accomplishments in his career. Nobody can deny that. And he is going to put those accomplishments on the line one-on-one with Cactus Jack. Cactus Jack and Chris Jericho is going to headline my independent show, Brie Mode Wrestling, coming to a town near you. Is going to be headlined by Jericho and Cactus Jack in a Mimosa Mayhem match. That's what it's going to be. I should have done stipulations tonight. Over on the women's side, we begin with Kana. Oh, look at this. This is Asuka the way that she was meant to be in that makeup. This right here is the real murder clown. This was Asuka before she joined WWE. Now she is unfortunately treated as a shell of her former self. So we have Kana, the murder clown, taking on Deonna Purrazzo, former Impact Knockouts champion. Another very good match. We're on a roll tonight. Let's keep it going. Let's pick some tag teams here. I like this. We begin with the Twin Towers. I was just talking about the man on the right. Look how big Boss Man used to be. He lost a lot of weight over the year. I mean, good for him. He really did. I mean, and I'm not even talking like just when he came back for his second run. I mean, if you look at the Boss Man, this picture here, this has to be from 88. 88 or 89. And really by, I would say, the summer of 90, he had already really slimmed down noticeably. But there you go. The Twin Towers. Boss Man and Akeem, the African Dream. Do you remember where Akeem was from? They claimed he was from deepest, darkest Africa. Twin Towers against the Rhodes Scholars. I don't know. That's not a marquee match to me. Even though we have one half of our WrestleMania main event here. I had to go with the buzzer on that. I'm not feeling that match. Not feeling that match. But 2 out of 3, man. 2 out of 3. Chris Jericho and Cactus Jack. Kana, the murder clown, against Deonna Purrazzo. You can headline my show with that. Yeah, the tag team, it was borderline. Why do I hate the Rhodes Scholars so much? I really didn't like that team. I really didn't. I really did not like that team. I can't even tell you why. I just didn't. We have got some super chats here before we wrap up. And we had a whole bunch come in here. And here I thought that Fire Panda was going to get the last word. Little did I know. Says, Dr. Dakota Scorpio, don't listen to Fire Panda. She is just jealous that she got the F out. And Bernard, thank you for the $4.99, Bernard. I appreciate it. First time, long time. Been listening since 2011. First episode I caught was your review of the critically acclaimed River of Darkness. Thank you. Well, that's going back a way. Was that the one with Kevin Nash and Sid as the undead zombies? Kurt Angle. Was Kurt Angle the star of that one? I think it was. I think he was. You talk about campy B movies. I did a whole review for that on the podcast. I don't remember. Don't even ask me what episode that was. I have no idea. It's probably episode 2 something, probably. You know, and I'm only noticing this for the first time in the live chat. Did they make a change? I'm seeing these like animated. I mean, it's like something you would see on. I don't know if you guys are seeing this too. It's like all these emojis that are, or emoticons, whatever they are, that are kind of like popping up on the side, like celebratory hats and hearts. The kind of stuff you would see on Facebook. I never noticed that before. The Rock versus Sting, Damn Solo, another WrestleMania main event, or another WrestleMania with Roman winning in the main event, is surreal. Wishing you a happy Friday night. Thank you, thank you. Rock versus Sting, I appreciate it. Oh, there's sticker. Okay, you know, I just didn't know what they were. I never noticed it before. This is the first time I'm actually seeing it animate like that on the side in the chat screen. Is it new? Okay, it has to be new. I never noticed it before. Super stickers. Casper the Barbarian, WrestleMania Night 1 is undefeated since they started 2 nights. And Howlin' Mad Murdoch with the $10 super chat. I mentioned this a while ago, but a funny segment during a bad storyline was Hogan and the Wall, oh yes, from Nitro, and Captain Obvious Shivani saying, "See that arm in the air? That means chokeslam." Oh, I remember that segment. The Wall was like, it looked like he was 5 miles away. And he's standing on top of this building. Somehow, Hogan is in the ring. They're outdoors. What was it, spring break? I don't know what kind of show this was. Hogan's in the ring, and he just so happens to look, and from that distance, he could tell that it's the Wall. It's the Wall, brother! And the thing I love about that segment is they have this faraway camera shot that slowly zooms in on the Wall, right? And he must have gotten a cue in his ear to put his hand up for the chokeslam sign, because, like, really quickly, his hand goes like this. Like, it goes like up into the air. But he's like miles away. But somehow Hogan that's the Wall, brother. That's the Wall. It's one of those unintentionally funny segments. It's so stupid, you just can't help but laugh. He had great vision, man. He must have had LASIK. Did they have LASIK back then? That would have been like the year 2000. I don't even know if they did LASIK back then. Fire Panda, thank you for the $2. It's the Wall, brother. That whole period in WCW where the NWO ended and Hogan went back to, or I don't even know if it was over, but Hogan went back to the red and yellow. I don't know. That whole period just didn't feel right. It never felt right. Oh, WCW 2000. My goodness. Hulk vision. Yeah, Hulk had a vision, all right. He had the vision of creative control. That's the vision that Hulk had. What about Hogan being thrown off a skyscraper? Yep, that was the Battle of the Monster Trucks with the Giant on top of Cobo Hall, was it? In Detroit, I believe. And Hogan, well, he didn't go off. Well, the Big Show went off the side. And then the Giant reappeared later in the night for his match without a scratch on him. Which is very impressive. The Yappa Pie Indian Strat match. Yes, that's another one that came during that period in 99 or 2000, where Hogan had gone back to the red and yellow and he wrestled Ric Flair. And they had a Yappa Pie Indian Strat match, which for the longest time I thought was an apple pie Indian Strat match, which sounds a lot better to me. But it was actually the Yappa Pie. Yeah, well, the Giant didn't fall to his death that day. Neither did Rey Mysterio when Baron Corbin threw him off the roof of Titan Tower during the COVID edition of Money in the Bank when they wrestled on top of the building. The Rock versus Sting. With our probably our final super chat here, $9.99. I am predicting for WrestleMania 40 that Cody as champion defending the title against Roman Reigns. It'd be their third match after Cody beats Roman at SummerSlam. So you would do a third match with Cody and Roman and have it at WrestleMania next year? I feel like there's going to be a different, bigger main event than just Roman and Cody next year. Rey Mysterio did not die when Seth Rollins gouged his eye out. Yeah, remember the gumball eye? I had fun with that. That was my Extreme Rules review. It was Extreme Rules, the horror show. That's during the pandemic era. When I was doing all the pandemic streams, July of 2000. That might have been the same show where they did the swamp fight between Brie and Braun. They had ninjas on that show. I think Omos was a ninja. That was his first introduction, I think, on television. Yeah, the horror show. Yeah, that was a horror show, all right. Fire Panda. Thank you for the $2. All right, guys. This has been fun. I think I got through all your messages. So that is everything, I believe. We covered SmackDown in depth tonight. We talked about the draft. I'll talk more. I'll have more thoughts on that on Sunday, I'm sure. A lot to cover on the Sunday show. So I hope that you will tune in. I hope that you will download and stream on all the usual audio platforms. Apple Podcasts, Appapie, Spotify. And I will be back with you live again on Monday night. I dread what we might be getting on Monday, especially after this week. But I will be back with you live after Raw this Monday night. And, well, however the show goes, you know where to find me. We'll be able to commiserate together. Hey, Rizzo says, I don't drink, so on my honeymoon, my now ex-wife goes, I'll have sex on the beach. I got excited only to find out that is a drink. Obviously awkward. Well, you could have made the suggestion to do both, you know. And Howlin' Mad Murdoch says, Hogan's voice cracking when he shouted, the wall. I do like how we got our good buddy Perk Angle here to make an appearance as we close things out. All right, good night to Perk, and good night to all of you guys. Have yourselves a great weekend. I will see you back here live on Monday night for the Monday Night Raw stream. Until then,